I'm not a vicar. I never have been, and I never will be. And I guess many of you think that I have been a vicar. And if I haven't, then why not? As I stand before you as a retired priest in the Church of England, celebrating the 10th anniversary of my ordination. What have I been doing with my life for that to be the case? And how come I'm here now only celebrating the 10th anniversary of my ordination, when at my age it should be my 30th anniversary? It's a tale to tell. For regulars here at All Saints, you will know that we're in the middle of a team preaching event. For 6 weeks, we are looking at Christian discipleship. And I'm here on week 3, where the theme is forgiveness, and the gospel passage is ask, search, and knock. In order to be ordained in any Christian church, you have to ask. Ask of yourself, is this a calling? Is it real? Then you have to ask the church structures to test that call. You have to search for the correct place to exercise the call, and then search again for the spiritual home in which it can be used. And lastly, you have to knock on a door which will be open to you. I grew up in a Methodist family. I met Roger, my husband, through the church. He and I and my mother were Sunday school teachers. And one day someone said to me, you should be a local preacher, a lay reader in Anglican terms. They recognised something in me, and off I went for 2 years of training to be accepted and accredited as a local preacher. In the service of accreditation, there was a moment, just a moment, where I knew that this was the beginning of another discipleship journey and not just the end of one. So I candidated for full-time paid Methodist ministry. My call was recognised and I was readily accepted. So my husband and I sold our business and home in order for me to go to theological college and then begin my itinerant ministry. The 3-year ordination college course was a joint Anglican and Methodist one. And all was going really well until during the final year, the differences between the denominations were becoming all too clear for me. My call was to that of a priest. And the role of a priest is not the same as the role of a minister. The Eucharist, rather than preaching, is the pivotal point in most Anglican services. And I found an Anglican heart beating very strongly within me. I spoke to the authority figures in both denominations, and it was agreed by both that I was correct and that I should continue the course as an Anglican and be ordained the following summer as clergy alongside my cohort of ordinands. This cohort, as it happened, was going to be the very first women ordained in the Church of England, and I was going to be amongst them. So far, so good. I was going to be a vicar, full-time, fully paid, family in a vicarage, and off we would all sail into a glorious Church of England sunset. Are there such things? But, however, suddenly it all went very dark. A large door banged very tightly shut. It was November 1992, and the Church of England had made that historic decision to ordain women as priests. A large door had opened very widely for them, as the first of them would be ordained that July. But sadly, that same door slammed on me, as it appeared that in the chaotic and troublesome times which followed that vote, a Methodist, female, ex-Methodist, was simply too much of an uncomfortable figure to have in those fragmented and painful structures. There is still structures and still pain in them. So all my previous arrangements were now cancelled, promises broken, and I was left with no pastoral care, none at all, and absolutely no direction for the future for me and for my family. Dark days were ahead, as all my colleagues were ordained that summer and I was not. I knew that my call to ordination was true. It had been recognised and affirmed and accepted by 2 denominations. But I also knew that somewhere the humanness of the church structures had got it wrong somewhere, and I was left to just walk away. With the total support of my long-suffering family, I asked God for direction, and I set out on a different journey, but always asking and searching and looking for that door on which to knock in order to fulfill my call and seek out my particular discipleship path. I studied and gained a master's degree, and I started my own training company. And for 20 years, my company was an amazing success as I travelled all over this country and met many wonderful people. It was a great healing exercise. In 2012, I closed my training order book and decided to apply for a volunteer post as a hospital chaplain. The interview took hours, as I was finally told, "You have a calling. Why aren't you clergy?" A little door, a very small door, had opened. But what followed was a series of doors which were flung wide open, and I simply rolled through them all. And I received apologies from 2 bishops, and I was fast-tracked to ordination. But by now, too old, I thought, to be a vicar, I'll just be an unpaid assistant priest. Job done. Job done. Bit of preaching, which I love, and of course presiding at the Eucharist, which is what this tale is really all about. The asking was over. The search had ended. The knocking had stopped. As a disciple of Christ, I needed to forgive those who in unyielding structures hadn't found their way to undertake the most fundamental part of any Christian ministry, that of pastoral care. Pastoral care, that was the issue. There was the need for forgiveness. But the journey wasn't over. I was ordained in a challenging but loving environment, and I served my curacy in another one too. Then, just as I thought God had finished with me, the ageing assistant priest, I found myself still unpaid and supposedly part-time in a full-blown interregnum, during which I ran the church for 18 months. So some use to the Church of England after all that. And when we moved and came to All Saints, well, many of you know what is coming. The vicar left, and I was here to serve in another interregnum, and of course it was during those memorable, delightful days of COVID. The rest of the story you know, as it's the present. I'd been back to both my previous churches over the past year or so, helping out in their interregnums, but now here I stand as part of this team with our vicar and our 2 amazing readers. And I'm sharing this story publicly for the first time ever. And if it's been too complicated for you to grasp, then just imagine what it's been like for Roger and our sons to live through it. And I will never be a vicar now. And I won't ever have a 30th anniversary of my ordination unless someone rather quickly invents an age-defying pill. But may I now say a very simple but a very heartfelt thank you to those who have supported me on my discipleship journey by providing love and pastoral care. The pastoral care is the heart of ministry. And I will never take for granted the privilege it is to serve you in return. God bless you all. Amen.